morning to you. The program is the Dailies on Network Television, where we keep you updated with all that is happening in other papers. We're still having the issue of insecurity coming up. We're still having quite a number of pictures capturing the armed force remembrance day from yesterday, and also we are also seeing the fact that inflation has actually risen. So 28.9% presently, looking at the cost of services and goods. So we have to breeze up to see what is going to happen as we're seeing that inflation is getting higher by the day. I'm Sela Elisha Dasham, and I'll be doing the program alongside Rachel Tenzi. Good morning,
Good morning,
Rachel.
Sela.
All right, morning, Rachel. And to our viewers, remember you can be part of the conversation by joining us live on Facebook and on YouTube. Drop your comment, drop your views on any of the story that is of interest to you. And later on the show, we'll open the phone line so we can also hear what your views are, so that you'll be able to know what you can actually contribute on the show. And we'll go straight into the paper, starting with Nigeria.
On Nigerian News Direct, Sanwo-Olu signs 2.2 trillion naira 2024 budget into law. Ex-Minister Charles Ugo, one other arraigned for alleged 3.6 billion naira fraud. Power supply Adelabu vows to deliver on metering target of 2 million yearly. You can find details on page 11. The big story on the paper again, Nigeria's inflation rises in 12 consecutive months. The writer under the story as headline inflation hits 28.92%. Steers predicts 31.85% annual inflation, recommends dollar illiquidity to tackle inflation. You can find details on page 10. NNPC Limited calls for private operators to handle operations of Port Harcourt refinery. Abuja kidnap abductors, raise ransom, kill 3 hostages. You can find more details on page 2. Picture story showing Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos signing the renewed whole budget for Lagos State of 2.2 trillion naira. And that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
All right, let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. Credit to government falls 45% to 5.16 trillion naira. You can find detail of that on page 19. Tinubu comments tighter security orders for fighting oil theft. Detail also in the paper. Release unremitted funds to NDDC. Niger Delta stakeholders urge Tinubu. Ozodima's second term, Imo safe for business. This is coming from Tinubu. The big story on insecurity. Gunmen run riot in Abuja, Enugu, Ekiti, Katsina, and 3 others. The rider following that story say bandits killed 3 abduct 36 women in Zafara community. Kidnappers killed 3 of the 10 victims in Abuja, raised the ransom to 700 million naira. Bandits raid military camp, unleash mayhem on Katsina community. Kidnappers engage soldiers, overrun Enugu local government, abduct 4. Gunmen abduct varsity lecturer in Kebbi. Hoodlums invade Castle Steel Corps. And now we have poverty, hunger, fueling insecurity in Nigeria. Atiku laments, and then Governor Sani seek a time frame to actually end terrorism. Senator Musa calls for state police, and I think a lot of governors have been calling for this state policing because the rate at which we are having insecurity in various states, and then we even seen even the FCT is not being left out. Definitely, we are going to be seeing senators, governors calling for state policing. So we hope that as they resume for their recess by the ending of January, they should look into possibly maybe Rachel passing a bill for the state policing. We know there are a number of states that have it. I mean, like that of we saw there military coups over there in Oyo State, and not Oyo State, sorry, in Ondo State, and then we also saw I think Plateau State used to have that. I think Operation Rainbow. So I don't know how active they are presently. Hopefully, maybe they will, make sure that with their issue we are having concerning insecurity, we'll begin to see more states. I remember that of Zamfara, the former governor was actually saying that if you could actually give the go-ahead to the intelligence of that state to go around with arms, well, we know what it means. I mean, a lot of people are not mentally stable, so you can't just say that anybody can go around holding or having an arm. You can actually end up having chaos because if somebody just get angry and all of that. So I'm just hoping that with the issue of this rise in insecurity, truly I think they should give this state policing second thought, because we know that, okay, even though I know that presently with the army recruitment, the police recruitment, Rachel, still we are still under when you talk about the
We
number
are.
of hands we should have going around
Yes.
insecurity, whereas we don't have the number that's expected. Because sometimes you see that, for recently we're having these bandits, I don't know if they should be called terrorists, actually invading schools. If you see that the numbers of them that are going there, they go in their numbers. They really go out in their numbers. So I just hope that the government will do something. If they are even having the guts to actually invade the army camp, then that is to tell you that these people actually know that. So possibly somebody somewhere is actually, instigating them, or maybe somebody somewhere is actually giving them the fuel that is needed to do all of this. And so it's my heart desire that, in as much as the president is looking at making sure that business and prosperity is in the land, but we cannot talk about business and prosperity when we are having the issue of insecurity. Farmers can't go to farm. Schools will be shut down if we are having this issue. So I'm hoping that let it not just be that words that we earn on our papers, but then let us see the work to actually match up the words coming from our leaders eventually.
I mean, Sele, when it comes to security in Nigeria, I don't believe that anything that will mean more security personnel would be a welcome idea. Therefore, I believe having state police is a very much welcome idea. It's all about regulation, it's all about having laws, policies guiding it, and all of that. I mean, like when it comes to the governor of Zamfara wishing everybody in the state could hold arms, when you look at it, it's not far from wanting everybody to protect himself, like, self-defense and all of that. And then the easiest way to do that, of course, is not to give everybody a weapon, but to give people at the community level, at the local government areas, to be able to be part of protecting their environment. And one of the easiest way to achieve that is having a state police. It just brings security down to the lowest level, to community. It's just like how we had vigilantes in the past, where a community can decide to say, okay, we will be hiring vigilantes because we've been having a number of attack, robberies, left, right, center. We blew whistles, and before you know it, it answers. And for a period of time, that helped when it comes to robbery in the community and all these kinds of little crime with vigilante. But then as time goes on, everything needs funding, and that's why we always need to think of sustainability. We had vigilantes going, and then now we have Hunters Association of Nigeria, and they are doing good jobs, because you know what, we see them in our churches, we see them during church service, even when you have any major event in your church, not only on Sundays, you can have them around. Therefore, I believe that states should sit down and canvass what kind of security method, exactly what threat, and then what kind of security method are we going to employ in our state. Is it a state policing? Fine, let us fund this thing, let's train, and let's see how we will have security at the grassroots at every corner. If we are going to say, okay, what we need are hunters here, because perhaps our case is peculiar, like when you have unique cases of herdsmen in villages, you know that you need people who also know the route. Just sit down and see what is peculiar to you at state level. But I want to believe that anything that means having more security personnel, agents on ground, because it's what we need, it's absolutely a welcome idea. It's just for every state government to sit down and say, how are we going to go about it in our state? So I believe, let our lawmakers sit down and give state this kind of authority and power to be able to safeguard. Because if we have to wait for the police, the NSCDC, of course we know the NSCDC can't go over herdsmen, after herdsmen and all of that, but when we have security at every community, at every corner, even to the places that are not guarded, I don't have that much security, I believe it will go a long way helping when it comes to security in the country.
Rich, and I think also, since from so far most of the intelligence reports we've been having, the fact that if we're having terrorists coming into a community, they always take advantage of the borders that maybe a state is sharing with another state and all of that. I think it will be wise for the government to see how they can actually have security operative at these borders or things
Sure.
that we're actually sharing with communities or interstates and all of that. I think that to some extent will actually help to control all of this, so
Yes.
we'll not keep having rise of insecurity and it looks like most of our border are porous and then anybody can just come in and goes out as will. So we look forward to seeing what the
Yes.
senators will do as well as the governors, because I believe if they are security votes, what do you use the security vote for your state for? These are questions that the
Yes.
indigenous of the state will ask. So I think just like you made mention, funding might be the issue, but we are hoping to see that security will be given the needed funding that is needed, so we'll be able to actually fight it seriously. Still on the Vanguard newspaper, we have a picture story here where we can see Tinubu Commission's project in Imo State. We can see him in those who accompany him there. We have the Senate President, we also have the APC chairman, and many other people were present during the commissioning. Still on Vanguard newspaper, cost of doing business to remain high as inflation hit 28.9%. Rivers got mom as assembly. Rivers government mom as assembly gets set to screen confirm 9 resigned commissioners. You can find that on page 12. Also, we are having a column from ADB and then another for sports that said Super Eagles hit gym for battle against Cote d'Ivoire. Well, we hope that they will have their clinical things ready, because looking at what they did during the opening, a lot of people are expecting more from them. So we hope that they will actually get whatever strategy they need to actually win this match with Cote d'Ivoire. You can find more detail of that sports story on page 31. Now we have other stories as well. You well to grab the Vanguard and read more detail of any other story that is of interest to you.
On Nigerian Tribune, Nigeria's inflation rate hit 28.92% in December, a report from the Bureau of Statistics. AFCC arrests ex-minister Charles Ugwo, one order for alleged 3.6 billion naira loan fraud. Over 50 aspirants jostle for Edo Guba ticket. Rivers Assembly invites 9 commissioners who resigned for screening. You can find details on page 15. The big story on the paper, Adelabu unfolds roadmap for power sector, says federal government spent 700 billion naira on electricity subsidy in 2023. The writer under the story says state government to get power of attorney in discuss operation, he says. And then estimated billing to end this year, Ibadan to get 330 kVA transmission substation, and then also 132 kVA substation in Oyo for upgrade. You can find details on page 7. Nigeria growing through epidemic of kidnapping, coming from Amnesty International. FCT residents plan protest today as kidnappers kill 2 more victims. Osun government raises concern over fake federal agents harassing state agents. You can find details on page 17. CCB invites Interior Minister Tunji Ojo to appear today. And at the downside of the paper, list of new Oyo State Park Management State Executives on page 18 to 24. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
You know, the fight for corruption is really becoming more intense as the day goes by. I mean, last week we saw that of the ex-minister of power during Obasanjo, and right now we're seeing that another ex-minister and one other actually are led for 3.6 billion naira loan fraud. And it looks more like we are actually serious to fight corruption. And I'm happy the way things are going, Rachel, regardless of who you are, high and mighty. As far as we are having misappropriation of funds, you're supposed to be answerable. It's just unfortunate. I mean, a lot of Nigerians, I saw some reaction looking at the former Minister of Power, where we saw that his bill was about 50 million, naira, and a lot of people were like, I mean, it's nothing equivalent to what he actually embezzled from the government. So sometimes you look at the bill and then you will wondering, I mean, somebody stole like over 1 trillion naira, and then he's supposed to be billed for just some few thousand or millions of naira. But then regardless, we have to get to a point whereby we want to fight corruption to the latter. And it's not about cutting it from the branches, but uprooting it, knowing the root cause of it. And so we're just keeping our fingers crossed. I mean, we are still having the probe of the humanitarian ministry, so a lot of things are still going on over there. So we'll just keep watching and see what this Tinubu's administration is all about, and we hope to see more people facing the full rot of the land, bringing back our money, because we need it for a lot of things in this country.
Yeah.
So we look forward to seeing all of
And
that.
I mean, Nigerians shouldn't be worried. A bill doesn't mean he's free. It's just so that he doesn't have to sleep in a cell. So he's just buying time for himself with bail, but eventually he's going to have to answer. And if he cannot answer, he gets his sentence. We've seen that for past governors. We've seen governors that are currently in prison. Yes, at some point they had bail just to buy them some time. Go out, do your needful, put your legal team together, come back, get your papers, answer. And if your answer can account for what you did with that money, you can go. But if you cannot, then you face the full rod of the law. And then I am looking forward, Sele, to see them going after bigger people that have stolen more money than this. We cannot say 3.6 billion is a small money, but there are people with hundreds of billions and even billions of foreign currencies that have been misappropriated and cannot be accounted for. So these are still small in the pool of sharks.
I believe this is just a warm-up.
Exactly, a warm-up. So I'm looking forward to them going for the big guns, if I'm permitted to say that. Exactly, the bigger fish in the pond and all of that. And eventually they will do that.
All right, let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper, where we have FOMI takes over federal government stake in 11 discos from the BPE. These are found on page 22. Still on Blueprint newspaper, we have APC Buhari hail first party national chair Akande at 85. FCTA staff protest permanent secretary posting by head of service. You can find more of that on page 14. And coming from the RMRDC, Saving Minors Life Through Toxicology Information Center. And also we are having on the Il Karaz, Girls and Others, Abuja, kidnappers jerk ransom to 700 million naira. Gunmen storm Chukuku, another Abuja community, and kill one. Wike not properly briefed on resident nightmare, coming from the PCC. And then we have 36 women abducted, 3 killed in Zamfara community as well. Detail found on page 6. We have cross-section stories, pictures actually showing us when the president was actually laying the red at the 2024 Armed Force Remembrance Day celebration at the National Archive in Abuja yesterday. And also we have other, we also have the Senate President, Godswin Akpabio, and other people also doing same. Still on the Blueprint newspaper, on the 2024 Hajj, we have the NAHCON Saudi COI sign pact on Hitch-free exercise. Many fear dead in Niger boat mishap. You can find that on page 7. AI deployment may threaten 40% global jobs, coming from the IMF. Of course, we've seen that coming. I mean, so if you know that your job possibly might be taken over by the artificial intelligence, I think it's high time we start thinking of something, because that's where the world is going to. And then, would I say fortunate or unfortunately, this is part of the thing that is going on presently at the World Economic Forum, and that started yesterday. They will be talking about artificial intelligence as well. And I think we need it, especially when it comes to the issue of security, Rachel. So I know that a lot of Nigerians will actually express fear, because imagine, I mean, our doctors will be losing their job, because all you need is just to get an artificial intelligence, they tell you this is what is wrong with you, they diagnose it, and you're good to go. So there will be no need for doctors. Nigeria will not need to cry that our doctors are good if we have gotten to that point. But then regardless, I think if we will embrace it in a positive way, I think a lot of people might not really get affected by the emergence, but it will get to that point eventually, Rachel.
I mean, artificial intelligence is from original intelligence. Now, are we getting to the point where, yes, artificial intelligence can take over? We are, but it's going to take a long while. Now, why I'm saying this is that regardless, artificial intelligence needs original intelligence. It still needs us. Properly. Exactly. So it's for you now to find a place where you are relevant regardless of AI. I think this is what we should rather start doing than just sitting down and feel threatened by artificial intelligence that is gotten from your intelligence, meaning you are more intelligent than artificial intelligence. You should find a place where you are relevant, valuable, indisposable. I feel that is how this new era can cope with artificial intelligence, where you put yourself in the place where you can coexist with this and don't feel threatened. And it is possible. What is your business? Adopt artificial intelligence. Show the world that, you know what, this is my business. I am using artificial intelligence. This intelligence needs me because I control the narrative in this business or whatever field I am. I believe that that's the way we can go forward rather than feeling threatened. I mean, these predictions could be true at the same time, not true, and it's going to take a very long period of time before we get to this much percentage, because this is very, very high, but eventually it will happen. But in the meanwhile, make sure that you are more relevant than
wherever
AI.
you find yourself.
Exactly.
I think that's just the take home
Yes.
for a lot of people concerning that. We're still on the Armed Forces Day. Apabio Lawan governors seek better welfare for living heroes, with the rider not yet to recover from the 1966 military coup. This is coming from the ACF. And or donate 125 million naira to widows and legionaries. I just hope that this money gets to them eventually. You can find detail of that story on page 6, and that's all on Blueprint newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, Supreme Court Nasara APC PDP sign peace deal. Ganduje Konkoso endorsed Kanu Elders Council. We have trending 7 marketers to leave Dangote Petroleum product, and on numbers, Nigerians seek prosecution of 772 billion naira fraud cases. Detained vessel 23 arrested, Tinubu others probe Hills Tantita. You can find details on page 7. President, governors, lawmakers pay tribute to fallen heroes. A big story on the paper, kidnapping crisis. FCT residents blame security agencies. Kidnappers killed 3 more victims, raised ransom to 700 million naira. 5 sisters yet to regain freedom. Rescue victims, Remi Tenibu tells police. Retired Army General chides leaders. You can find more details on page 4. 7 family members die in Kano Inferno. You can find details on page 6. Food transport costs push inflation to 28.9%. 100 missing after boat capsizes in Niger State. You can find details on page 12. And on AFCON 2023, Senegal trashed Gambia 3-0. And that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
You know, Richard, these 7 family members, we really have to be careful, I think, because this happened as a result of fire outbreak in the midnight while they were sleeping. And I just hope that we really have to be very, very vigilant. I mean, check, make sure every electronic are switched off, no gas is running. If possible, in fact, from wherever it's being connected, just off it, just in case of any leakage whatsoever, because we've seen these things happening over and over again, and it looks more like families are careless when it comes to things like this. But we won't be so heartless to say things like this. I mean, right now, a lot of people are weeping. 7 family members retiring. Nobody survived. I mean, it's a sad one. So we hope that we'll play our own part. I mean, what do you need to do to make sure that things are in order? I remember we had that last year in Gadabi where we saw a number of people died, and then it was more like a time of mourning. And that was because of some people just refused to follow instruction. A lot of people were being told, do not build close to the transformer. But a lot of people refused to hear it. And I mean, so right now you ask questions like, who is to blame for what happened eventually there at that place? There was a blueprint. Who sold the land to you? And funny enough, Rachel, I know, like that of the Gadabu, I actually know that because that transformer has been there in existence before those houses were there. So sometimes you can just help to ask the question such as, common sense is not common.
It's not
you
common.
saw the transformer there, so why buy a land close to there?
I mean, Sela, you know, regarding this, I'm always like this when it comes to things that needs to be done. There's a reason why we have a government, there's a reason we have a law, and there's a reason why we have law enforcement agency. Regardless of having a law, not every individual will adhere to the law. And then that is why there's a need for law enforcement to force you adhere to the law you refuse to. Now, there will be very stubborn people that regardless of the law, do not build close to a high tension pole
Voltage,
or a
old,
transformer
yeah.
or whatsoever that will. That is when the law enforcement will step in and say, the law says you dare not build here, and we will not allow you build here. So who allowed them build there? Because there will be stubborn people that, you know what, will say things like, man must die, something must kill a man, we must survive, we need a house. There are people that will stupidly say things like that. And then we have law enforcement to make sure that regardless of how stupid you are, we'll put sense into you, because this is our law and you must keep to it. Because you can't just wait for every citizen to be good, because everybody will not be good, everybody will not adhere to the law, everybody will not do the needful. And that is why there is a law and there are people to enforce that law. And so I'm just looking forward to everybody playing their part and not sleeping on their job. It's really a sad one. And then sometimes you walk into houses and you're uncomfortable. I even walk to a salon, for example, and I'm uncomfortable because I'm wondering, how are they dealing with this kind of naked wires? How are you existing in a space with this kind of naked? And usually the smoke always kills before the fire. So probably this family already died in their sleep even before the fire burned them down or something like that. So let everybody play their part, Sele. It's really sad. This is a sad one. Let everybody just keep playing their part for safety. And then let's just look forward to where we will not be seeing this kind of sad news on our papers.
Honestly, because even it's still the same thing, because this fire was actually as a result of electric spark when the power sector restore back power into the house. And that is why I'm emphasizing on the fact that make sure you switch every gadget, make sure that there's nothing that can actually, because we know the way it is. In fact, you can be awake and then just when the power is being restored, and then you begin to see a lot of things burning, and all of that. So we need to be careful. And you made mention of the fact that we have law enforcement agency, but Richard, that is to expose or actually telling us the fact that corruption is there.
That's what
if
it
not,
means,
if you are supposed to enforce the law, what happened? You saw that. Why didn't you emphasize on all of that? So I just hope that that's why when we keep talking about corruption, it's not about the people. It starts from those small places. Responsibility are being given, and then you refuse to adhere to it. Right now, we're having about 7 family members are dead. 1 small child survived but is being hospitalized. So we do not know if that child will survive eventually. So we just hope that let's just play our part and make sure that we do the right thing when it's expected of us too. And I think we have to go to the next paper. But before then, we are ripe for a break at this moment. So we'd love to take the break, let you chew the stories we have been looking at this morning. And then when we come back, we'll continue to look at other stories on the paper and then open the phone lines as well to hear your own views. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Hello viewers, my name is Amaka Ocheke. We anchor the program, The Living Room, right here on Equa TV International.
You are welcome to watch us every Monday.
The Living Room is a very interesting family program where we discuss everything you want to know about family.
Talk about our children's mental health.
Keep watching. Our program is always here, 5:30 every Monday. We want you to ask questions. We want you to phone in and drop topics that you want us to talk about, even on our media handle on Facebook. We're there. So keep watching, keep listening. The Living Room.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper, and then we'd love to hear your own views about the stories. I mean, what do you feel about all of those stories? Please do remember to drop it on our Facebook and YouTube, and then you can call us on the number displayed on your screen at this moment. Please do remember to turn down the volume of the TV set and be audible enough so that we can hear you and other viewers at home can also hear you as well. As they have Rachel Tanzania with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper where we have on 2024 oil production. Federal government strength to meet 650 million barrels target over the crude-backed loans. You can see a picture showing us Nigeria's oil output lowest in decades, and then how we are just trying our best to see that we meet up with that. You can read more detail of that on page 6. 7 richest Africans wealthier than poorest half of the continent population. This is really news of interest, so you can find that on page 3. NNPCL shops for net worth investors to manage Port Harcourt refinery. Tinubu lead Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration, detailed on page 4. Federal government 35,000 wage award remains till new minimum wage. This is coming from NLC declaring. We remember that they said they will review that by the second quarter. That's by April, so we look forward to that. For the meantime, it's still 35,000 naira. Nigeria inflation ends 2023 at 28.9% as naira anxiety worsened the output. So if you round it up, we are looking at 29% presently as our inflation. So detail of that can be found on page 6. Reconsider INEC budget for accountability and democracy. This is an editorial you can find on page 2. Minister ordered discos to supply transformers to community. Incessant kidnapping on settled Abuja residents, detailed on page 30, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, OPS blames struggling naira for highest inflation in 21 years. 14 states spent 21 billion naira on foreign trips despite zero FDI. AFCC to arraign ex-minister over unpaid 3.6 billion naira loan. The big story on the paper, abduction epidemic spreads nationwide. Kidnappers move from expressways to Lagos, Ogun, Abuja city centers. Abductors kill 2 young victims, demand 700 million naira ransom for 9 others. Tinubu National Assembly governors remember fallen soldiers. You can find details on page 8, and we have picture stories showing that. Sanwo-Olu promises more projects with 2 trillion naira budget for Lagos State. Wike fiddles with Rivers politics while Abuja burns. This is on kidnapping. You can find details on page 15, and I truly hope that the minister starts facing his business in the FCT. 69 protesters killed, 189 journalists arrested under Buhari. This is a report. You can find details on page 30. That's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, terrorist bandit on the rampage. We have Morsupe must pay 60 million naira to save daughters. DSS take over NPC headquarters over abduction of staff and kids. And then we have Abuja, 10 kidnappers killed 3. Raise the ransom to 700 million naira. First Lady urged security agency to up their game. Also, we have president leaders loan ex-APC chair Akande at 85. MBS put inflation rate at 28.92%. Also, here we have Tinubu saying prosperity. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Morning. How are you? Shaman calling from.
Good morning, Mr. Shaman.
The duty of every man is the welfare of citizens. But if there is welfare of the citizen is at stake, then I don't think we have government. What is playing out in this country is I think we don't have government. The issue of insecurity and enjoying security institutions to set up. If not, Nigeria will become a laughing stock to the state of the world. Can you imagine how Abuja people are running for their lives? Can you imagine here in Kaduna, they cannot sleep with their 2 eyes closed? With the money being spent on security, we cannot see security in our domains. Then what are we saying? Nigerians should know, and our leader, political leaders should know, that the responsibility of every leader is to ensure that peace and stability in every corner of the country. If insecurity is knocking on our doorstep, and we cannot live with our two-faced eyes closed, and we cannot even do what we're supposed to do as citizens, then there's a failure in the face of government. Said, any insecurity that takes more than 24 hours, the government has to. I can see rightly that government is playing tense and take counsel with a lot of people. The insecurity is being taken for granted. I don't know where we're going in this country. We spend so much. We are misplacing our priorities. The government can spend 160 million to buy vehicles, and we don't have security. Then why are we being selfish to ourselves? I pray that Tinubu will step up with his chief to ensure people sleep with their two eyes closed. This bandit called education haram, and that's exactly what we are saying. The Boko Haram is really playing out. Our institutions are not safe, our hospitals are not safe, we are not safe in our homes, we are not safe on the road. Look at Abuja Kaduna Road. What I said last two Sundays, and people like that to the book. Up to now, I have relatives among them. We don't know what we are about. Why are we being faced with this kind of things in this country? I pray that we're going to get it right in this country.
Amen.
Enough of our suffering in this country. The welfare of Nigerians is at stake. Let Tinubu and his cabinet step up so I will have security in this country. Good morning, my sisters, and may have a nice day.
Good morning.
Thank you, Shamal, for that contribution. I think it's not far-fetched from what every Nigerian, the concern everybody's sharing in regards to the issue of insecurity and the way things are moving. We hope the president, here we are seeing even on the paper, the first lady is calling on the security agency to please just rise up to their responsibility and do the needful. Still on the Nation newspaper, the big story here we have says Tinubu prosperity soon after subsidy removal pains, with the writer saying President Obasanjo, governors, senators honor Uzodinma at second inauguration. Also, we have other stories here that say NNPCL opens bid to privatize Port Harcourt refinery. Firms got till January 29 deadline to submit their EOI. Also, we have Sanwo-Olu sign a record of 2.267 trillion naira 2024 estimate. Hoodlum sees body at Kasuk. You can find that story on page 6, and that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On First News newspaper, the big story, Edugate, Tinubu turns searchlight on another serving minister as Code of Conduct Beirut summons Tunji Ojo over alleged 438 million naira contract scam. Our country on the verge of economic recovery, stability, Tinubu assures Nigerians. NNPCL to hand over Port Harcourt refinery to private operators. Alleged 3.6 billion naira loan fraud, EFCC arrests ex-minister and one other. Uzodinma sworn in for second term as Imo governor. Power hunger escalating insecurity in Nigeria, statement from Atiku. More troubles for Interior Minister as U.S. firm sues him over multi-million-dollar contract. Demands 50 million naira as damages. And on Rivers crisis, Wike's loyalists who quit Fubara's cabinet set to return to government as Assembly invites them for fresh screening. I will run for president again, says Liberia's George Weah. And concerning JAPA, UK releases list of companies eligible to sponsor Nigeria's work visa in 2024. Sanwo-Olu signs 2.267 trillion naira appropriation bill for 2024. Hoodlums attack doctors in Exude and Steel Corps. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, inflation at 27-year high of 28.92% may lead to rate hike. Detail found in the paper. Appeal court miscarriage of justice. Tinubu should react to injustice done Plateau lawmakers. This is coming from the Sun. Say lawmakers who benefited should voluntarily resign. You can find more detail of that inside the paper. Still on Daily Independent newspaper, worsen poverty and hunger fueling insecurity in Nigeria. Coming from the PDP presidential candidate Atiku, asks authorities to address the situation to regain the trust of citizens. You can find more detail on page 29. Tinubu leader Pabio Abbas, Ariwola, and others to honor fallen heroes. National Assembly pledges support for families of fallen heroes. And also we have Africa's 7 super rich wealthier than 350 million people urge the government to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. More detail of that can be found on page 29. And we have FUTA shut down indefinitely over protests against fee hike. And then we have the ACF says not yet to recover from the 1966 military coup. Autonomy Syria promoter of mega party can't be taken seriously, coming from the APC. And on subsidy for 40 years, few people cornered our commonwealth, coming from the president Tinubu. We have a picture story where we can see the governor of Lagos State signing the 2.267 trillion naira budget of renewal. More detail found on page 6. Downside of the paper, on Rivers Guber, we have Supreme Court reserved judgment on appeal seeking sack of Fubara. Detail of that can be found on page 7, and that's all on Daily Independent newspaper.
On Voice of Liberty, Tinubu sets up special panel to probe Empower other social investment programs. Better Gate, CCB invites Tunji Ojo over alleged 438 million naira contract scam. Bandits attack military camp, loot homes and burn vehicles and others. This happened in Katsina State. The big story in FCT, kidnappers killed 3 of 10 victims, increased ransom to 700 million naira. Kidnappers who abducted 10 persons from an estate in Abuja, FCT, on January 7 have reportedly killed 3 of their victims to send a strong warning to their relatives negotiating ransom payment. Federal government isn't taking right forex decision. We've been deceiving ourselves, coming from Atiku Bagudu. Supreme Court verdict on governorship election restore people's confidence in judiciary, coming from the NNPP of Kano State. Poverty, hunger, escalating insecurity in Nigeria, statement from Atiku Abubakar. Police orders refusing to track kidnappers, bandits with NIN and SIM data. This is a statement coming from Pantami, and that's all the news on Voice of Liberty.
I don't know whether they are refusing or they have not been given information of all of these things, because I do not think a security operative, after being given a certain information, you made mention of the tower that, regardless of whether your SIM is being linked or not, as far as the phone is on, you can track wherever it is, except if the phone has been destroyed. Or we should just get to that point intelligently that we get to know the way things are. So really, 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 I just hope something will be done about it. It breaks my heart. Looking at the picture, Rachel, you can't help but wonder. Look at the young kids that, their life was wasted. Why? Because certain people refuse to do their job, or because certain people are playing politics with the life of Nigerians. It's really, really sad. But we hope that, it will not get to the point. Already, this one is drawing attention of the international community, because it will get to a point that a lot of people cannot. We're seeing what Amnesty International is saying about issues like this. So we hope to see better approach when it comes to securing the lives and properties of Nigerians. Well, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the New Telegraph newspaper. And the New Telegraph newspaper, coming from the CBN, Bank's credit to economy drops by 1.15% to 64.6 trillion naira. And on Operation NNPCL Limited to engage maintenance firm for Port Harcourt refinery, detailed on page 8. Vandalization of the TCN installation alarming, coming from Adilibu. Also, we have how certificate racketeering endangers Nigerian students' fate. State police has become inevitable in Nigeria, coming from Sani Musa. We are maintaining the current natural gas price for critical sector, coming from the NMDPRA, detailed on page 5 and 8. And a big story on our Nigerian region, nation needs more soldiers to combat insecurity. Says the government shouldn't be wary of fending for service and retired soldiers, as Tinubu and other honored our fallen heroes at the National Accord. And also we're having Governor Apabio Lawan and others celebrating the armed force. And then Army Chief urges troops to redouble effort to secure the nation. ACF condemned alleged attempt to rewrite history. You can find detail of that story in the paper. Alleged 3.6 billion fraud, EFCC arrests ex-minister. And on boat disaster, over 100 persons missing in Niger River. Democracy has not failed in Nigeria, says academic of letters. You can find that on page 16. No respite. Year 2023 closed with higher food inflation figure of 28.9% coming from the MBS. And then we have custom to prioritize scanning against physical cargo inspection. Committee mandates it to rectify, optimize all scanners at prominent ports. We have a study at the downside of the paper that said soya nuts reduce breast cancer recurrence. So you can find that on page 26. So it's important that you add up soya nuts to your diet as much as possible. And that's all the New Telegraph newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, Tinubu Governor's APC chair ordered witness Uzodima's second-time inauguration. The big story on the paper: kidnappers go gaga, rake in millions from Abuja victims. Killed over 300 residents kidnapped in 2023. Mountains, ungoverned areas serve as hideouts. You can find details on page 6. Hoodlums invade Ekiti Teaching Hospital, attack doctors and steal corpse. 3.6 billion naira fraud, EFCC arrests ex-minister Ugu. Governors committed to ending banditry, terrorism, and other crimes coming from Sani. 747 CBT centers cleared for 2024 UTME. You can find details on page 6. Armed Forces Remembrance Day, Tinubu governors, lawmakers, orders honor fallen heroes. Ceremony refreshes our pain. Statement coming from Aluko, Widows Association president. Inflation has rendered our pension useless, coming from Jibrin, a veteran chairman. You can find more details on page 6. And at the downside of the paper, federal government acquires BPE's stake in 11 electricity discos. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
Let's take a look at what is on the Business Day newspaper, where we have Nigeria's problem. It's low export, not high import. So right now, it's not about how much we're importing into the country, but then how much are we also exporting out of the shores of Nigeria. And I think it's a story that we should take seriously. You can start reading on the front page and continue on page 30. And we can also link that to the issue of the inflation that nears 30% as uncertainty clouds the Monetary Policy Committee meeting. CBN intensified liquidity tightening. So you can find more detail of what it is about the headline of the inflation rate that is almost 30%. Here's analyst stock picks for 2024. You can find more of that on page 31. Atiku, Obi, Kwankwaso have agreed to join forces coming from Otumi. Dangote firm gained from 514 billion naira in market value after refinery startup. You can turn up to that story inside the paper. We have the picture story as well, showing us the governor of Lagos State signing in the 2024 budget. And that's all on Business Day newspaper.
On Sporting Sun, Haaland's Man City future tied to Guardiola. Police arrest Ghana fan for attack on coach. Kane leads Bundesliga top scorers race. You can find details on page 3. Benzema excluded from Al Ittihad training camp. Israeli footballer arrested, sacked by Turkish club. Man United ready to hijack Guirassy move. You can find details inside the paper. The big story: AFCON 2024. Okocha joins Eagles for Cote d'Ivoire showdown. Murphy's arrival boosts team ahead of Titanic Elephants clash. Finidi tips Senegal will win AFCON. And we have the Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou fight, which is set for March 8 in Saudi Arabia. You can find details on page 7. Sadiq Omar returns to training at Real Sociedad. You can find details on page 6. And we have Radcliffe lines up 200 million euros offer for Vinicius Jr. Mourinho faces sack at Roma. De Rossi on standby. You can find details on page 3. Chelsea plot surprise January move for Firmino. You can find details on page 5. And that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Well, I think that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel,
You're
for
welcome,
doing this with
Celine.
me. Thank you for calling us, Mr. Shamal, on the show. Thank you to our crew members, and thank you to every other person who have always supported and viewed this station. Until we come your way tomorrow, to have a blessed day ahead.